I've spent a few days doing as much research that can be done. I've heard everything from Milagro to Troy Terrain to Albert and Preach. I've heard the news. I've listened to what appeared to be crisis actors, and I also listened to what appeared to be genuine people. And I paid very close attention and watched very closely with a trained eye for staged events, for Illuminati ritual, something very esoteric in nature. I've been studying the esoteric natures of humanity and how it loves to have these little spaces that they go into in order to do the things that they do ritualistically. And like when you go into a Catholic school church, you hear stuff like they bow and all these different rituals. The Masonics have all their handshakes, all the rituals. All the gang members have all their handshakes, all their rituals, all these different things. I studied all of this stuff, and I don't see any of that here. What I see is drug overdose. I've been to the first festival-esque that I went to was for this group called Widespread Panic. And Widespread Panic were very, very huge. And they would sell out stadiums. And they did a tour for like 15 years straight. And I wound up following Widespread Panic for a season in 2002. I followed Widespread Panic from Madison Square Garden all the way to the Hard Rock Cafe in South Beach, all the way to the Staples Center in Atlanta, all the way to as far as Nevada. I went pretty far following this band for a while, a couple of months, few months. And let me just say this: people falling out at the way they fell out at this particular event, it's not a spell. There was these reports that went out that these people all fell out from a heart attack, and how could people be, all get the same illness right at the same time? I also saw ambulances riding through these crowds of people, and I saw the mosh pits being able to contract and separate. And I used to be in mosh pits many times in my life, coming up in the 90s, everything from hip-hop mosh pits all the way to the hardest core rock and roll mosh pits, where heavy metal mosh pits, where you had to be very careful because you were going to get an elbow in your eye, especially if you're the brown guy in the room. You're definitely going to get the elbow. Even though I was 225 pounds, solid, very, very strong, very, very built, 6'1", 225, 230 pounds, when I hit the mosh pit, it was no joke. And let me tell you, man, everything that I saw, they want to talk about 50,000, possibly 20,000 overloaded or overran by the freeloading crowd. I did not see it where it was too crowded. And I've even saw the latest diagram of where people were running. That still does not show me a person who's been there in the trenches, in the mosh pits, in the place that was overcrowded. That That can't happen. 8 people being trampled, yes, it's possible 8 people could have been trampled. But they're not saying that. They're saying that people died of heart attacks and fell out. And not only are they saying that, they're speaking about 100 people fell out and made it to the hospital that did not die. So something happened, but it wasn't a spell. It wasn't an Illuminati ritual. It was bad drugs that got passed around. Real simple. Somebody went out there with an agenda, and they went underneath their kitchen sink and they made something and they sold it. And by the time dehydration sat in or whatever it was, it put a lot of people on their asses, and it also killed. You know, that's my take on it. You know, and I'm a studier of all these different things that I said in the beginning of this video. I don't want to, you know, trigger anything, but it doesn't appear to be anything more than just massive amounts of drugs. And I understand how irresponsible he's been in the past, but he wasn't telling people to brush the stage tonight. You know, there's artists that are told different things at different times of their career. You know, they start off wild and crazy. You know, let's remember we had artists like Ozzy Osbourne biting off the heads of birds on stage. You know, let's understand that it's irresponsible to tell the crowd to come forward like that and climb the gate, but it's also something that happened in the past. I didn't see anything where that was being promoted in this event. They're using the past to create this narrative. You know, we have a young man who's been in the business a very short period of time, who's amassed a fortune, $60 million. So they say. How does that get determined, his net worth being 60 mil? Who determines that? His manager, who I believe is one of the Kardashians, the Kardashian sisters, their mom. I believe her name is Kris. And Kris is also the manager to this other guy, downtown, Lil Nas X. So, you know, when you have a manager like that pushing the agenda, these numbers get thrown around: 60 million, 80 million, 100 million, 20 million. But, you know, what is that? What determines that? Net wealth. So let's not get all caught up in that. And then we know that this Live Nation, you know, they've had hundreds of people get killed in their events. This is nothing new. There's a reason why there's paramedics in the middle. There's reason paramedics all throughout the left and the right side, because people are falling out from not being crushed and not a responsible performer and not a company that's had many problems. Yes, the company's had many problems. Yes, this person is irresponsible in the way he's speaking to the crowd, endorsing people to fall down, and that the crowd is going to catch them. I mean, like, hello, the human body weighs a lot of pounds, and it's coming down, and for every second that it's flying down in the air, the weight of that human body multiplies, and when it hits people, man, you're going to crush people. The people in the bottom were just as dangerous for them as it was for the person who was coerced into jumping. I mean, just talk about a real beta male. I mean, like, you just were talked into paralyzing yourself. What an idiot you are. You know, you fell for the peer pressure. And peer pressure is no joke. I get that. So, what I'm saying is, let's not be so quick to give Illuminati so much credit. Because, yes, I saw the stage. I saw the representation of what it was like. I saw the holograms of the people walking over the top. I seen all that. But that's not evidence of what really happened down there to those people. You know, we talk about frequency, and they talk a lot about how this was a low frequency, a low vibration attack. And are these things available? Absolutely. DARPA has publicly come forward talking about how they have weapons that can put a thought into your head. You know, so was this a testing of a weapon? They've tested a lot of weapons. How necessary is to test a weapon on this crowd? I question that. There goes Star. Star is on. I'm about to say goodbye. And check Star out on the Star Report. He's live right now. Big Elvis to Chef Rosenberg. Cash App is $ Elvis Rosenberg. One word. The E is capital, and the Elvis and the R is capital. And then my PayPal is at Elvis Rosenberg, and my Venmo is at Elvis-Rosenberg. So feel free to do the value for value system. But I've been to the festivals. I've been to the parties. I've been to the arenas. I know that there is massive. There are people that do not enter into this environment without being pre-gamed. They are pre-gaming every concert, every event. Do not fall for the narrative. I can't wait for the autopsies to come out, if there's any truth in what's going to come out. And then people are going to say, what about the 10-year-old boy? What about the 10-year-old boy? What about the 10-year-old boy? What does the autopsy say? People that go to a Travis Scott concert are prepared to be running. You see, and let me not go to Star so quickly. Let me just say this. I noticed this in Harlem, at the Harlem, the African American Day Parade in Harlem. So I used to have a bar. I was a manager to a bar, and I guess it was a managing partner. So I was a managing partner to a bar in Harlem, and right in front of the bar was the African American Day Parade, which they never allowed me to get a float. And as many times as I tried, they were saying how there was no corporate entities allowed. No corporations were allowed to be on the float. So in turn, it became one of the worst parades ever. And they wouldn't even let a Harlem business. They were like, no, you can't. I was like, we've been over here at this bar for 15, 20 years. We want to be part of this parade. And they refused to. Went to the Harlem Chamber of Commerce, everything. Tried everything we had to do, but it didn't work out. My point is, I watched how that parade had slowly transformed from really nice, amazing parade to a really trashy one. And what I noticed was, let's say I've been out of the bar business 11 years. So let's say 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago, I noticed that you would get a group of teens, and these group of teens would just start running. It was kind of scary at first, like, whoa, you see all these kids running. And I remember in my bar days, I used to, be very, very heavy. I used to carry, not my weight, but I was always carrying something to defend myself. And, I always had a money bag, always going to the bank. So I needed to always be on point when it came to, being able to go home every day. So I would walk around with a weapon at all times. And I remember when the parade happened, it was like I was reaching every time I turned around, because they just had these group of kids. They would start off at 20, then it would jump up to almost 200 kids just running in one direction, and then another 200 kids running in a different direction. And it would all just be strategic, whereas the adults had no idea what was going on, and it scared all the old people, so people stopped going to these parades. They were like, I'm not going to the parades. The young kids are just running back and forth, hurting, like scaring people. And that's what Travis Scott, his crowd, that's what they're into. They're into the running back and forth. They're into the making these huge openings for the mosh pit, and then closing in on the mosh pit, and then opening them back up like an accordion. So people are prepared for the trampoline. People are prepared to be on their toes. But what people weren't prepared for was a real horrible human being who was either giving away, which makes it even more disturbing, giving away laced drugs or sold laced drugs, bad drugs, that didn't respond well to all that running back and forth and the mosh pitting and all that. So Travis Scott, he could be a propped up idiot whose music is trash, or he could just be a propped up idiot whose music is trash and people were on the wrong drugs. And they didn't have enough of this. These kids thought they were probably doing MDMA. And it wasn't that. It was something totally different. Thank you for checking out my small channel. I'm Big Elvis the Chef Rosenberg. Tri-state guy. Trying to make it in this beautiful country full of nothing but opportunity. I just want to tell you something before I go. And don't forget this, because this is real. I love you.